Worm sign. He's in that cave.
One Piece chapter 1110 serves as a microcosm for insight into the events of the Void Century. What do I mean by that? So if we ask ourselves who was involved in the Void Century, we can give an overview answer of Sun God Nika, aka Joy Boy, aka Monkey D. Luffy, and his supporting clans, being the Giants, the Buccaneers, sovereign country of Wano, which is now being showcased through a descendant of the Shimotsuki family, Zoro, versus the 20 founding families and their leading figureheads, the 5 elders, aka the 5 planets, aka now the 5 yokai. Now that we know who was involved, we also know where it most likely took place, and that was the Ancient Kingdom. The Ancient Kingdom is being mirrored by Egghead. We're on a very futuristic island with technology that looks like it's from the future, but actually originated from the Ancient Kingdom over 800 years ago. So we have the who and we have the where. The last remaining question, and the most important question, is why. And hopefully within the next 7 minutes of story time, we'll gain a deeper understanding of the ideology of this ancient kingdom that made those 20 founding families attack them. So this was a great chapter. I think the best way for me to review it is to actually first start with the cover page and then talk about the different parties involved, starting with the least interesting and moving towards the most interesting. So the cover page continues the Wano series, the Ogre Child, Yamato, about to embark on travels. Of course, everything that Yamato does has to be inspired by the actions of Odin, and so Yamato is ready to go travel Wano. Given the last cover story where Onigashima was on top of old Wano, my natural train of thought is that Yamato is going to uncover some information regarding Pluton and how to activate it for when the time is ready. I think that was a very under discussed topic in terms of how you actually open the borders, right? So one of Odin's main objectives was to open the borders of Wano, and that essentially should entail the awakening of Pluton. But how exactly do you do that? I think Yamato's journey and who she encounters and what she encounters in that journey might provide some additional information in regards to activating Pluton. So starting with the least interesting or least hype group, we have the first batch of Straw Hat members and affiliates. So the first one that seems like they'll be dispatching the island is going to be Frankie, Julie Bonnie, Atlas, Kuma's Body, and some of the giant pirates. Naturally, I think this makes sense. We continue to see the heightened priority of executing Bonnie. It's no longer like, taking her capture. It's like straight on execute Bonnie while we have the opportunity. So it just makes all the sense in the world to get her off the island as quickly as possible. I think this also continues to provide momentum to the Bonnie for Straw Hat agenda. Moving on, we have the second group of Straw Hats and affiliates being Nami, Usopp, Edison, and we get the update that Brook and Lilith have arrived there with the ship. Chopper and Robin are probably somewhere around, Chopper attending to Robin's wounds, most likely. This group is ready to leave the island. They get the command from Sanyu to actually get out of there as quickly as possible. So how they actually do that, I'm not sure, given the Sunny. And I think they still have to get through the laser barrier. So that's going to be an interesting train of events to how they actually get off of the island. The third group of Straw Hat affiliates is Jinbei, Zoro, and not an affiliate, but an individual, Rob Lucci, who's in the area. All it took was a little bit of motivation from Mosshead's best friend in the forms of a diss calling him a liability. That motivation gave Zoro the boost he needed to essentially one-shot Lucci. Now, I'm not going to consider this fight a one-shot. You know, we do see them both scuffed up, so I can imagine them kind of trading minor blows, but usually, you know, Zoro's finishers are very emphatic, so all it took was one three-sword style technique, potentially infused with Conqueror's Haki. Given the ambiguity around that, there's no real way of knowing until we actually see it, but we didn't see the whips on the blade, so I'm not sure if he's using the Conqueror's Haki here. Nonetheless, it was an impressive feat. Naturally, we have to have a power scaling conversation, but before that, I encourage you to like and subscribe for more anime analytics content. So the best way we can power scale Lucci appropriately now is to compare him against King. We're going to kind of do this advantage versus disadvantage. The only advantage I see Lucci having again over King is his combative technique. He actually knows martial art techniques in the form of Rokoshiki. He knows all those moves. He's a trained combatant. He's a CP0 member, so he definitely has the upper hand when it comes to formal training in martial arts. Outside of that, I think King has all the advantages. So starting in base form, King is just a genetically superior individual than Lucci. You could argue King's base form would probably push Lucci to use his zone hybrid form, which is his best form, to combat King. King, I think, has just kind of like the natural advantages. Well, Lucci can fly. They both can fly. So, you know, but King is a little bit more natural in the air. King has higher durability. He probably has higher speed. Probably has higher strength. So all those kind of physical attributes, I think, definitely goes to King. And I think he also has access to a better array of techniques with the ability to shoot the flames, imbue his sword with the flames, the wind slices and stuff like that. So I think he kind of has better combat abilities, although, you know, Lucci is a more trained combatant. When we compare to Devil Fruits, Lucci definitely has more mastery, given that he is an awakened Devil Fruit, but given that he is a normal zone, it doesn't grant him access to additional abilities. So really he's just getting like another multiplier on his speed, endurance, attack, and ability to recover. And I think the awakened boost that he receives probably just puts him on par with King's Devil Fruit, given that King's Devil Fruit is an agent zone. I think it was stated that all of their base stats are already higher than the zone, so you can almost even them out. And then I think, given all that, King just has better attack power and capabilities. I don't see anything in Lucci's arsenal actually able to take King out, given a lot of his techniques are more like assassin based, but we know the durability of the Lunarians kind of acts as a natural negator to a lot of that. So yeah, I'd have to give it to King if they were ever to square off, although I think it would be a great fight. If I had to put Lucci in a tier, I'll probably put him in that low second Yonko Commander tier. Moving on, we have the reveal of the 5 Yokai. That's what we're going to roll with, and I'm going to go through them very quickly. So we have Gyuki. Gyuki being an ox demon that has 8 legs. If you're a fan of Naruto and watch the series, you know that this was the Hachibi, except his was an octopus. Here we have more of a kind of scorpion-based demon form that Saturn has taken. We have Itsumare, which is a giant bird, not exactly a phoenix. If you ever watched the show Beyblade, I couldn't stop but thinking about Dronzer. Out of all the 5 forms, this is definitely my favorite. I just think aesthetically it's kind of one of the more pleasing ones. We have Feng Zi, takes the form of a bull essentially. This is probably one of my least favorite ones. I just kind of think it's a little bit too similar to like Sasaki, short, stout kind of style. Wasn't really interested, although I am of course interested in the abilities of them. And then we have Bakutsu, definitely my second favorite. But he takes on the skeletal horse form. If you ever seen the movie Headless Horseman, this was giving off Headless Horseman vibes like none other. I just think it's, very similar because they both have that eerie graveyard feel of a horse, and then of course Zoro wielding a sword just seem very similar for me. And then lastly we have the most Japanese traditional name of Sandworm. That's sarcasm, but yeah, Sandworm, probably the easiest design to draw. The X on its face, if you ever seen Soul Eater, there was the Demon Blade Ragnarok that had a similar kind of black design with a white kind of X across his face, very similar looking to Saint Peter. However, out of all the forms that the Five Yokai have, I do think this is actually most in line with his minister trait of being the Minister of Agriculture. So if you're into gardening, worms are a great sign that your soil is healthy, because worms break apart the soil, which enable the roots to grow deeper. That's very much in line with agriculture. Now we kind of look at the actions of the Five Yokai. So we have 3 staying here: Sandworm and Fangzi, as well as Saturn to combat Luffy and his supporting clan members of the Giant. So that's going to be a 3v3. I think the Giants add just like a very organic feel to the story. Like every time I see them just kind of walking, it's almost like you can hear them because they're so giant. It's just like toof 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 toof. And then they're probably some of the only individuals that, like, based off of just pure genetics, that can compete or actually provide valuable support. So we're going to see what the quote-unquote strongest army members can do. So we have that 3v3 going, and then we have first Itsunade flying up to and breaking through the barrier, most likely looking to find a way to cut the transmission. I don't think prioritizing attacking the other Straw Hats is like on the immediate radar right now. I think getting York and cutting the transmission is probably the priority for Itsunade. And then we have Bakutsu, the finance minister, being very attentive to the bottom line of the Marines' investments. Of course, the Pacifista being very costly, and being able to preserve the capital invested in them is a high priority for the finance minister. So he takes it upon himself to disable roughly half of them and has another half to go. He demonstrated some incredible speed feats and most likely will be encountering a foe from the sovereign family Wano. Yes, I'm talking about Zoro Shimotsuki. Well, a descendant of the Shimotsuki family. This is very fitting, and I think it's a great mirror again to probably events that happened during the Void Century. Most likely Wano, well, of course, was an ally of Joy Boy, Nika, etc. And so you have a descendant of Wano country directly going up against one of the figureheads of the founding 20 families, assuming that the Gorosei were around during that and it didn't come around afterwards. Now, we have to talk about the origin of the Gorosei. Their introduction means that they didn't eat any devil fruit, so is this their natural state? And if so, does that mean creating a devil fruit from them is a possibility? I think so, because not necessarily mean that that's going to happen, but if we think about the lineage factor associated with devil fruits, that means that they had to come from something, right? So Luffy's Nika Nika no Mi had to have come from Sun God Nika. That's how he is able to gain the abilities to essentially transform, and they all have the awakened form. So it seems like they are the practitioners of whatever they are, whether it's yokai, extraterrestrials, or even extensions of Imu. My thoughts on whether or not they're extensions of Imu, I could see it being a consequence of the immortality surgery. So I'm going to take inspiration from other stories, right? So Naruto being a great example. We have the reanimation jutsu. In order to do the reanimation jutsu, you had to kill somebody and then essentially implant like a soul into that. And then another example is we have Horcrux from Harry Potter. So in order to grant immortality to Voldemort, he had to sacrifice a life in order to preserve his life, and he did that 7 times. So maybe that is a similar consequence to the immortality surgery, where Imu had to split its soul into different pieces, and in order to defeat Imu, you first probably have to take out the 5 Gorosei. That actually leads me to my next point, where I don't think all the Gorosei are going to make it out of this situation perfectly unscathed. I could see one of them being taken out. Not exactly sure which one, but I could see one of them being taken out. Also, on a side note, I want to touch on some of their abilities. Bakutsu displaying the cold freezing ability. Yes, very similar to Brook, and they both have like that kind of underworld theme going on. If you've ever heard the phrase HE double hockey sticks will freeze over, I think that's definitely, inspiration for his abilities. Let me know in the comment section below, what exactly are they? Are they extensions of Imu created, or are they just practitioners of whatever race all of them are? Hopefully we get some insight into that. But that about sums up my chapter review. I think it was a very hype chapter. Of course, the reveal of the 5 Elders Planet Yokai. Supposedly, this was the first full cover spread, or full page spread drawing that we've gotten since the drinking of sake from the Grand Fleet. But it was amazing. We had just enough updates on and kind of story progression from the other parties. Of course, this is a stalling tactic by Oda. We have the timer, but I think it all works well. As long as the hype and momentum continues, then there's not really much to complain about. We have 7 minutes of story time left. We also have a very interesting chapter coming up with 1111, so that should be even more hype than this, and then we'll probably get a break after that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the chapter, and until next time, Taicho out.